Imagine a future where your automated insulin system has a built in nutritionist and diabetes educator that helps you with carb estimations and lets you know how food's gonna affect your glucose. Well, that reality is here right now. A user of Loop, an open source AID system used by many, including myself, has built an AI platform right within the app that helps users with carb estimates and gives them a bunch more information. Welcome to the show. I'm Justin. I have type 1 diabetes, and on here I talk all things diabetes tech, news, and research. Today I've got something very cool for you. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had an episode all about this app called Snack, where you can take pictures of food and it will explain how that food's going to affect your glucose. Now, that is a standalone app. It's very cool. You should watch that episode. But today, we're talking about a system, an AI platform within an automated insulin system. Today's guest built this AI food search using the power of AI in just about 30 minutes. Seriously. Now, DIY Loop is an open source app. Users have to build it themselves. It works with Dexcom CGMs and the Omnipod dash pump, as well as some other ones. It's used by a lot of people, and it's become tried and true in the diabetes community. Today's guest, Taylor Patterson, has used Loop for about 3 years now. And using Anthropic's Claude AI, Taylor built a food search feature that lets users scan barcodes, enter text or voice prompts, or upload images, where a large language model, or LLM, of your choosing will identify the foods, list its nutritional value and portion sizes, and even provide diabetes-oriented feedback. If you want to learn about Loop, the system that I and many others use, there is a link in the show notes. You can sign up for our newsletter and you'll get a free copy of our starting guide for Loop sent directly to your email. Keep in mind that anything you hear on this show is not medical advice and is for educational purposes only. Open source apps like Loop are experimental. They are not approved by any regulatory government. They are completely at your own risk and results may vary. Always consult with a physician before making changes to your healthcare. All right, let's get into it. Taylor, thank you for coming on the show. It's good to have you here.
Yeah,
You've been using Loop for how long?
4 or 5 years maybe.
Okay. And how has it helped you?
Well, shoot. Okay, there's a lot of ways it's helped me, but the most memorable aha moment was, I've been cooking along with pen injections, barely testing myself very often for a lot of time, like 10 years or something like that. I was diagnosed in 2000. So, so 15, 20 years I was doing that. And my A1C bounced around between 7.5 and 8.5, could never really improve much. Who'd have thunk that that was the case? When you don't test very often and you don't know how to dose very well, my A1C was high. So how did it help me? I uncovered the do-it-yourself nature of Loop online. I also uncovered that you could attach a G6 monitor and a pump, which I was never a big fan of pumps, but it showed me an option there for the Insulet Omnipod, the tubeless pump. So I'm like, well, I've never tried that. So I'm a tech nerd, and putting those two things together using a self-deployed, self-buildable app attracted my attention. I figured out how to do it. I downloaded Xcode for the first time, started playing around with it, and got it. With their fantastic instructions, I was able to get it done. And I got a script for G6s. I got a script for the Omnipod, connected them, and after a very short amount of time, it was working. The light bulb moment came 3 months later when I had my next A1C. So my 7.5, 7.8 dropped down to like 5.6 in 3 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
That was when I realized the power of not only the power of the tech, but the power of knowing more to take care of yourself.
What would you say to someone who's interested but afraid to start Loop?
I'd say don't be afraid, and that there are people out there who will, like myself, help you get it hooked up, help you work yourself through it. And it is not it's not as scary as you think to leverage the tech. And it's not hard at all today as compared to a few years back. It's not hard at all to automate building the app. on the iPhone. That was actually the biggest challenge, was learning how to troubleshoot building errors and all that. And the community who built Loop and put together all the instructions and scripts has done a really magnificent job getting it to a level where it's very well automated.
Yeah, at first it's definitely scary to take it on and you're reading through the documents and you're like, wow, this is a lot, but you're also learning the power of it. And then it winds up not being that difficult. And like you said, there's a huge community out there, resources, which I'll throw in the show notes so people can get for of people who will help you. Now, you've been using it for a few years and you've also for a couple years now had this idea for a food search, an ability to look up the foods you're about to eat within Loop, uh, and use that information as you're dosing. So you had that idea for 2 years. Why now?
So yeah, I had the idea. I wrote a user story, at least I got that far, to try to define what it was I was trying to do. I even did some research on some available free APIs to try to encourage a developer who knows what they're doing, coding, to
Because you're
pick
not
it
a
up.
developer, right?
No, I don't know my class from my you know what. I don't. What's a method? I don't. I work with developers, and I managed teams of people who were developers. I'm a DevOps person, but how to code, how to create that stuff, I can't code my way out of a wet paper bag. So I was hoping somebody would go, man, that's a great idea, because I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen the idea posted anywhere else. So yeah, so a few years back, I did as much as I could do, and I'd hoped somebody would be like, let's build it, and nobody did really.
Yeah, in one of those posts that you put up asking about this feature, you mentioned Calorie King. And yeah, there are these apps like that and Figly, which is one I love that uses, images
Or
and
glucose milk.
glucose. There's My Fitness Pal. There's a lot of apps out there that help you with carb counting, but they're very detached from our systems, our treatments.
How does this food apply to a diabetic? That's the thing. And we don't know. We often, like, you become diabetic and then you have to go to a nutritionist. They teach you about food because you forgot about all of that stuff from grade school. And they teach you here's the size of a cup of rice or a serving of rice, whatever. And then, of course, we're lazy. We forget it, right?
Well, yeah, and if you had access in the first place to get that help,
Yeah,
great.
good point. Very good point. So, yeah, so I think, for me it was like this would help so many people who need the help in the moment. And I had used Gluco, and I it has a great barcode scanner, and it's got its own text food lookup. It's great. Reached out to them, asked them, "Can I have access to your API? I mean, you have this great library." Um, and then there are other apps that do the AI stuff. That's recent. And so,
Did
yeah,
Ever get back to you?
yeah, they just said talk to the hand. They were just
Okay. Okay, at least they
whatever,
told you to talk to them.
right?
And yeah, we it was a few episodes ago we had the CEO of Snack, SNAQ, come on, which is an app that does similar things to what you're doing. You're doing it in some different ways, which is why I had to have you come on. I mean, and also just your story of building it's incredible, which we'll get into. But yeah, there's a lot happening in this space right now, and
Yeah,
it's an exciting time for people, especially with diabetes, who may be lost with when it comes
yeah.
to not only carb counting, but understanding how it affects their levels and how different foods affect, right? Like that's really good, important information.
It is so important that it is so important to our health to know these things that not only will it help improve our time in range, but it helps give us the knowledge to make better choices. Because without that knowledge, and we just, we're forgetful, we didn't get the training, we just don't know. And it's, like I said, it's a demoralizing disease because it really makes you feel like, man, I used to eat whatever, and now, for those of us who didn't grow up with it, right? Because I got it when I was 40 years old or something. Or why now is largely because of AI. I mean, it's all because of AI. because as AI has come onto the scene and uh, you know, dummies like me are starting to figure out, holy crap, I got a developer now in my pocket. The guy with the idea can now get it done without needing to hire a team or outsource it to a company and spend thousands and thousands of dollars just to build a prototype. That's freaking amazing. And that's why now.
Yeah, and tell us about that moment where you realized, oh, I could do this, right? Wasn't one of your colleagues working on a website with AI that kind of sparked this?
Yeah, yeah. My buddy at work, he and I we were at a work conference and we're chatting on the side, and um, he was talking about how he's using AI to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, really? What could it do? This? Can it do this? Can it do that? And he says, oh yeah, let me show you that. Let me check it out. And I said, well, let me show you my app. I have this app, open source, Loop. And what if I wanted it to this and this and this and this? Could it barcode? Can AI build a barcode app? To look up barcode. That's all I was thinking. He goes, not only that, you could program it to analyze the pictures of your food, and that's where I was like, okay, this is it. I gotta try to figure out how to do this. He actually is like, let me help you. I'll build it. I'll build it. I'll build it. Well, he got busy, distracted. He never. So I check in with him every week or two. I'm like, hey, how's that going? And he's like, oh yeah, I got ideas. I got ideas. So he was so busy. So that's when I'm like, maybe I could figure this out. And the trick was just figuring out, how do I give an AI agent that knows how to program in software access to my local drive? People listening to that was probably like, oh, that's simple. Did that 2 years ago. Well, it's not easy or intuitive right now for a layman to figure that out. Well, once I figured that part out, then I just downloaded the repo, or I forked the repo, and I let it have at it. And all I did was tell it, read the code, tell me what you know about this capability, this feature, this product, and it gave me a sense where I had confidence it knew what it was reading, and then I just said, I want a feature. I want to add a feature that does this because I don't want to have to go to another app to do it. And I want it to be as free as possible. I want it to be as performant as possible. I want blah, 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 blah. So I just basically read my user story from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that I had written, and I even pointed it to that URL. And it went out, and it's like, yeah, I totally understand. Here's how I'm going to do it. So it gave me an approach. It described an architecture. And I said, go for it. Let's see what it does.
And how did you implement the loop code with that?
Um, well, I didn't I didn't give it any developer guidance. And it decided to create several new files, and it decided to minimize how it had to interact with loops, because it understood the diabetic context and the importance of an app that does what it does. And so it decided, I'm not going to do it. I'm putting words in its mouth, but from what its actions were, is like it decided, I'm not going to do anything that will interrupt how the normal dosing algorithm works. This is all just pre-dosing information, and we're going to dump our output right into the app that exists. And then when we worked together, me and Claude Code, over time I was like, this is pretty cool. What else is missing? What else should we do? Like, I'm looking for ideas. And it said, well, literally told me, since we've been working on this, I've uncovered a couple of areas of improvement for performance. So, like,
Okay.
what are they? I think we can compress images, and that will save some time. I think we can reduce token use on the API. I think this, I think that. I think we can make it more responsive. I think it offered ways to improve it, something that has not been my experience with a lot of developers. Like they're exhausted, you know, they're just like, okay, here's your
Wow.
MVP, you know. But this thing was tireless. And if I'd
Yeah.
let it keep going, I mean, it could have just hacked it down to, you know, 1 or 2 bits worth of changes, all as needed, and then it would just add this big decompiler onto the app, and then it
Yeah.
might over improve. It might over improve. So I whatever, but I was really amazed how creative it was, and what I learned because as I'm working with this, I also was learning how do you set the right tone and terms and prompt, right? But it's not about the prompt. It's about context engineering. It's about helping the coder understand deeply what it is you're trying to achieve. Well, that's business analyst stuff. And so the better you can do with that stuff, and then the better you can set the standards under which you want it to operate, the better your outcome is going to be.
So from the beginnings of this, of you putting this together, giving it all the prompts, it working with you, how long did it take to go from the beginning to having, I guess, a prototype that you were like, this
It
works?
works, yeah. Um, I think it was like a half an hour or something like that.
Wait, you're saying it took you a half an hour from let me just start doing this to let me put this on my
Yeah,
phone?
yeah. Because it already had this repo of beautiful code, well documented features, and it went out on the web and searched everything about loop and learn that it could find, including, you know, Reddit discussions and
Yep.
stuff like that. And
Probably some of my videos.
it built its own context very well. So it knew exactly what I was asking for. And yeah, half an hour. And I think it cost me like $5 or $10 in tokens, something like that. $5.
Okay. Did you put it on your phone at that after
No,
those 30
I
minutes?
ran it in the simulator in
Okay.
Xcode, and
And how'd that go?
I tapped through it, and I'm like, wow, this is. I mean, it's to a seasoned Swift programmer. It's probably not that impressive. What I saw though was like the idea went from my brain on my phone in half an hour, and that was what blew me away.
It's unlocking the ability to have good ideas and implement them with the
Yeah,
correct prompts.
yeah,
There's more to it than that, but that really it is what it is. AI can be
totally.
all of these tools and positions that used to have to hire for and pay for,
Well,
and
and you would never even do that. Who's got the money, really? And
yeah,
you know, do I have to go
or
get
the time,
investors?
or
And
the time to learn
yeah,
themselves and really implement it.
yeah,
So what
it's
you've done in such little time is pretty incredible. So when did you start using it?
as soon as I got it running on my phone, and man,
Okay.
I was like, I'm scanning every meal I could, and I downloaded food pictures to practice and test it. I tested on the other end of the AI analysis is Claude, Anthropic Claude, Gemini, and OpenAI. I tested 3 or 4 others, can't remember which, but those three were the ones that had generally the more consistent feedback. And of those three, I tested 30 different or 30 of the same sets of pictures of food, same exact ones. So I keep the control group the same. And I compared calories, carbs, fiber, fat, everything, all the nutriments, wrote them all down, old school style. And OpenAI was the most accurate and seems to understand the prompt that Claude AI created for this. That is what gets the right kind of answers back in the format that it needs, that the app needs it to be in. It asks for it all back in JSON, and it knows how to ask for what in a way that it gets back glycemic index information, FPU information, impact of exercise information, carbs, calories, fiber, fats, and it knows how absorption time, all those factors are all in this humongous prompt, which, by the way, I've now divided into 2 sections because I realized we were sending the same 30,000 character prompt for basic food analysis as well as advanced food analysis. So I've severed those two and made the basic food analysis much more efficient and quick. But boy howdy, I mean, it's just like incredible what you can get back from the prompt.
Right now, this is mostly a food search and it gives you a lot of information, which we'll get into. But currently, there is no way for, or correct me if I'm wrong, there is no way for this AI food search to tell you, hey, the last time you ate that same thing, your glucose levels did this for 3 hours. I would consider making these adjustments.
No, it doesn't do that. And that's really what the algorithm inside a loop is supposed to be doing, somewhat. I mean, it's probably limited.
Well, and it does, but I wonder though, it seems like the next step for something like this is to also introduce one last section of information saying, "Hey, by the way, last time you ate this, I noticed that you went low. So consider that," or whatever that is, right? That because the loop algorithms, it's going to do its thing, but it's not machine learning. Like
Right.
it's not AI. It's just an algorithm that functions with your
No,
settings.
are you giving me a feature request?
Yes, this is my feature request. And I got ahead of myself because this was later on asking about if that's the next step, but
Yeah.
it just felt right to say it
I
now.
think I think from what I can tell, and I'm no expert at this stuff, so just your mileage may vary, right? Keep that in mind for your listeners. From what I can tell, that you can get back if you prompt correctly. There is a tremendous wealth of like diet nutritionist, diabetic specifically nutritionist knowledge out there that it can rely on and pull to you. And that was the key for the whole app was we we make assumptions as diabetics too often that lead us to bad dosing decisions, either not enough for a given amount of food, or too little, and then we don't remember that. It's just human nature. We just forget about it. We move on. But the reason I'm so excited about this is because it puts it right where you need it, which is in the moment with an unknown plate of food on you, in front of you, right? I mean, the barcode thing's simple because if it's in a box or a bag, you got exact nutriments because it's looking it up from a library of 500,000 different kinds of foods that are packaged and have to, by law, have that stuff. So that's great. That's taken care of. And if you don't know how much carbs are in an apple, great. You can text search, find an apple, USDA standards, 15 grams, whatever. That by itself, I think, helps reinforce the learning needed. But with AI, the big problem I think it helps us so much with is when we are handed a plate of food at a restaurant or out with friends, how many portions are we eating? How am I eating twice as much, or am I eating the right amount to equate to 15 grams of carbs for that half a cup of rice? Well, wait, that looks like half a cup. I don't know. But we don't know. AI helps us know that. And if it compares itself to, or it compares what it sees that you're about to consume to a standard book of portion sizes and stuff, which it does, this app does now, then I'm learning along the way that, boy, like, did you know a brioche bun has, 40 grams of carbs, but a regular hamburger bun is more like 28? Who knew? I don't know, but that makes a
Yeah,
difference.
that's great knowledge that
Yeah, that's a unit of insulin more or two.
This episode is sponsored by Omnipod. As someone with T1D and with an incredibly active lifestyle, it's important for me not to get tied up, especially with tubes on my insulin pump. I love to go swimming, lift weights, and play kickball with friends. And with Omnipod 5, I never have to worry about tubes getting in the way. Plus, not having to disconnect helps me to stay in range during all of my favorite physical activities. That includes sexy time too. See if you're eligible for a 10-day trial by visiting omnipod.com/diabetic. On there, you'll see full safety and risk information and trial terms. That's omnipod.com/diabetic.
you've trained this model to act like, your diabetes educator
Yeah.
that's giving you a fair amount of information. So once you do, let's say, a barcode, an image, a voice text, explain to me the little explanations you get, because I know there's a few different explanations you get.
Yeah, so the first one is food detail. How many portions of something are you eating? And what is a standard portion? And in this portion, in what it sees, what is the calories and the fiber and the fat and the carbs you're about to consume. So if it detects you're eating twice the standard portion for rice, you're having a cup instead of half a cup, it's going to calculate your carbs just for that item. Then it shows you all the other items. So you could be eating a combination of, a piece of chicken, some broccoli, some tomatoes. It separates all of those out best it can, and it goes, here's the carbs for the chicken, 0. But here's the fat, here's all that other stuff. Here's the carbs for the French fries. Here's the carbs for the tomatoes. And you think, well, I'm just eating chicken and there's carbs in tomatoes. I didn't know that. I didn't know you needed to account for carbs. And this is the thing about getting to the advanced level when you want to like geek out on diabetic management. You need to know protein and fat because that impacts absorption time. That impacts how much insulin you should give and over what period of time. So it takes all of that into account. So it shows you food details. And like if you have a plate of food in front of you, but you know you're not going to eat the fries, it sees the fries, but you can delete the fries and it adjusts your carb recommendation. So that's cool. So education about that. And then the next section is portions and servings. So it tries to describe for you, here's what I see and here's how I judged how big the portion is you're about to consume. I think that the chicken you have there is about the size of 2 decks of cards. That's 2 portions, whatever. I think you're eating a cup of rice when really the standard portion size is half a cup. I compared your size of your plate to the fork I see next to it or the cup I see next to it. That is how I'm judging how big the plate is. And the broccoli is covering a quarter of that plate. So it tells you exactly what it's thinking so you can go, okay, you can believe it. You can trust it if you agree with it. So that's the second section is why am I thinking you have portions and serving sizes that I'm recommending. And then the last section is the diabetic notes. So, if you're eating a piece of tiramisu, it's going to say, man, this is a high glycemic index product. Be aware of that. And that means you're going to absorb it faster and expect a spike. You might consider a post dessert, whatever. It gives you advice how to treat the meal if you want to go that route. And there's a lot of talk in the communities around, square wave dosing and, give half now, give 30% now, give 7% later for pizza or, whatever. That's a very complicated thing to do by itself. But you have to have the knowledge first to even comprehend that, to even use that to improve on your life. So this brings you the knowledge, and that's a start. And so those are the 3 main sections.
When you're inputting this information, does it place that anywhere in your app or on your graph? Does it show like, is there a picture I can tap on to see what I wound up eating? Or is it kind of just, it shows you all that information and then it kind of goes away after give yourself that bolus?
So right now, when you scan something, it will take that picture and it will keep it a little thumbnail in the analysis. So like right now,
But does that analysis go anywhere after you
no,
use it?
no, I didn't want
Okay.
the app to consume storage
Yeah.
or resources or anything like that. But I did think about that and I did play with finding a way to keep the little thumbnail picture in your dosing history.
Yeah, and I wonder, it doesn't need to be on loop necessarily, but platforms like Tidepool would potentially want that. Educators would love to see this data and usage when they work with their patients. They'll get images and barcodes and all of that
That would be
that
cool.
stuff. So, I'll try and if you haven't already been in touch
Another
with
feature
Tidepool, I can
request?
try and
Okay, let me write it down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But
the
yeah, I
ability,
do.
because look, data is great and seeing it immediately is great, but I think we learn from the past, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
it's great. It's a great tool to have in the moment. I'm sure it's going to help a
Hmm.
lot, but being able to look back, oh, that week was weird. What did I eat that week or that
Hmm.
day? what happened? Oh, I wound up running that right after that meal. So maybe what it said was right, but whatever it is, being able to look back sometimes is helpful, and you're already inputting such great information and images
Yeah.
that yeah, in my mind, I'm like, I would love to go back and look at that.
It would be cool to have a whole health diabetic um, solution.
Well, you know what you could do, and I don't. You have to start another app that basically the app's function is just to store all of this information.
Well, that's what Apple Health is supposed to be doing. I think
Hmm.
it just
Hmm.
doesn't have much in terms of diabetes in there. I agree with you. It'd be really cool if there was one app that showed it all and then gave you insights and surfaced suggestions for improvement. That
Yeah.
would.
Yeah, or, I noticed you've been eating a lot of fatty meals. Maybe we should, look into changing your diet. Whatever it is. I don't want it to be too
maybe
judgmental, but
maybe lay off the popcorn.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. Gonna McDonald's a few times this week.
yeah,
So tell us about let's get into each way that you can put in a prompt. Let's start with the barcode, which you kind of just explained. I'm pretty sure
yeah.
that's pretty obvious, right? You scan a barcode and then what's happening there?
So the barcode thing works really well, and the reason it works really well is because it hits a public API. It's Open Food Facts public API. I had to reverse engineer it a little bit and figure out just what's the URL string I need to hit it with to get back what I wanted, and it gives you everything about that food product. So the trick was trying to figure out, well, what is it I need to extract and what's consistent about what I want to extract, because there's everything is like there's carbs per serving, there's carbs total, so there's all this stuff. So when I was writing that original user story, I was thinking, man, this is freaking complicated trying to figure that part out. When AI came on the scene and me and Claude were working together, it figured all that crap out. I didn't need to touch any of that. It figured it out. And as we refined it, we made the barcode scanner more and more accurate. So when you scan, you're getting, as long as you have network access, you're getting a totally free, public, available today Open Food Facts API result, which has apparently a 500,000 or so products in its library. Open Food Facts, I think, is a open source, volunteer based outfit that has built this and takes consumption from all kinds of different inputters. I don't know how or where, but their database grows over time. It would be cool to be able to add your own. If you don't find a product, it'd be cool to scan a thing and then type it in for the benefit of the community. I don't know how to do that. I think that would just start to overcomplicate Loop.
Okay, now what about voice and text prompts?
Really, the key is what's on the other end. And what's on the other end of voice and text is the USDA publicly available food lookup. It ain't great, but it's better than nothing. And so that's why I added popular foods as an option. So if you're looking, quickly, I want to see what an apple is costing me in carbs or whatever, you just tap it. You don't have to say it and you don't have to type it. But that's meant for normal food that's not in a bag or a barcode or a box, that sort of thing.
And now one of the most exciting abilities is the AI image search, right? So tell me what's happening there.
It is opening the camera and it's going to ask you for a photograph. You can use a picture that's in your, on your phone's library if you want, just for testing or whatever. It gives you some tips, it says take the picture directly overhead. It gives you tips for just getting the best picture out of it. And what it's doing is going literally out to one of three AI providers, Anthropic or OpenAI or Google Gemini.
Whichever one you chose, yeah.
You choose, yeah. You create an API key for it. So this is not a free thing. You have to create an account on one of those three, and it's very inexpensive. And you fund it with, I don't know, $5, and it will go and hit your AI search provider of choice. It is handing this gigantic prompt that specializes in asking for the right kind of information, diabetically biased, and a result that comes back in JSON. So it's a format that can be consumed by the app or by the feature of the app. And so it's analyzing how big do I think this plate is, what's around the plate that I can use for reference, how much of the plate is each section covering, how many things are there, what are those things, and how much is there compared to a standard based on USDA. So it's doing all of that. And it's literally like having a nutritional advisor that's diabetically biased sitting there over your shoulder to tell you, this is why I think you should take 12 units of insulin, or this is why I think you should take, rephrase, this is why I think you're about to consume 45 grams of carbs. However your algorithm is set up to do that is depending on your therapy setting.
Yeah, because it's not recommending any form of treatment or insulin, right? It's just saying this is the amount of carbs and these are the nutrients I see. These are the servings. This is how much I think you're eating. Use that information, however.
Giving you all that information we have always been missing.
In a lot of the videos that I've seen you post and we're using in the video of this on YouTube as we speak, a lot of the images that you uploaded are pretty perfect looking, which oftentimes a plate won't look perfect.
Right.
If you're eating an apple, great, it will look like an apple, but a lot of, plates can get messy unless you don't like your food touching like I do. So mine tend to stay pretty tidy. How does it navigate that? If you have a thing of pasta with, 3 ingredients in it or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good question. It does it very well, amazingly well. It will pick things out in that picture or in the picture of your plate that I didn't know were even there. And then you look and you're like, yeah, holy crap, there is mango there. It recognizes, the difference between different kinds of foods and vegetables and whether it's got a crust on it. Like it could see a chicken with almond crust and it calls it out. It's like, normally I wouldn't give you carbs for the chicken, but it's got this almond crust. And so I'm assuming it's got some flour in there to adhere to the chicken. Like it's figured this stuff out, which is pretty amazing. It does. I added logic in the prompt to recognize whether we're looking at a platter of food or a plate, because the assumption is you're not going to eat the whole platter of chicken wings. You're maybe going to have 3 or 4 of those. So it will tell you, I see a platter, and then it will try to size a portion for you and recommend the number of carbs that may be in a portion of that platter. So I thought about that stuff, but yeah, it's really amazing, and that's the thing. So the other thing I tested on is menus and recipes.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I was in Quebec, and I'm looking at this French menu, and it was for spaghetti carbonara, and I'm like, what the heck? Let's try it. It figured it out, and it said, I see the words.
How do you? So you put in text? You put in French text, or you took a picture of the menu?
I took a picture of the menu written in French.
Okay. And
And it knew it was spaghetti carbonara, and the ingredients that, how a menu is written, it's not really ingredients, but it tells you here's what's in the carbonara. It figured out how to give me a guesstimate. Now, since that time,
Wow.
I'm like, don't, like, I told it in the prompt, when looking at text, don't assume and don't overanalyze, because you don't have a picture of the food, so you can't render an opinion on portions, or you can just need to make assumptions on portions. So I've got a section in the prompt that specifically now addresses when it sees text. But I did some tests with the recipes, and I have recipes that have, like, they're from a cookbook of nutrition eating, my wife's cookbook, and it has how much fat and how many carbs and how many proteins and all that in a serving of this recipe. So I knew exactly what it should end up with. So that was my answer book. So I had it take pictures of recipe after recipe after recipe. It got it pretty darn close.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. If you're taking a picture of 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of sugar, all of this stuff, it will figure that out. Will it be exactly perfect as it is on the packaging? Maybe slightly off, but I mean, that's something I try to do myself. It takes me like 10, 15 minutes to figure out all the ingredients, then add it up, divide it by serving, whatever, and this does it immediately. So that's so cool. I love that. So how have you been implementing this into your day-to-day?
I use it every chance I get. I try not to waste tokens on things I can barcode. I do
How do
barcode.
tokens work? Like I have a subscription to ChatGPT. Am
Yeah.
I not covered to use this in an unlimited way?
No, because it's API based. It needs
Okay.
to use. So I think of it like two different channels of accessing the same engine. One channel's free, as long as you go through the web, you type in your question, great. The web and its interface with a human has a certain standard in which it operates. It's CSS driven. The answers are the input request, the prompt, if you will, is put into a certain format. It goes back to its back room. It generates a result. It comes back to you in its chosen format. The API gives you much more extensibility. So I can ask for it in a specific format back. I can hand it my prompt in a more expedient way or a more specific way than just typing it in. So it removes that interface and gives you more of a direct access to the same engine. So because of that, they charge for access to something like that, and that's why you have to create an API, application programming interface, and it's very inexpensive. And AI has somehow, I don't know how it came to be, but globbed onto this concept of consumption through tokens. So you pay $5, you can use 2 million tokens or something like that. Doesn't matter when you use them, doesn't matter how you use them. And so that's kind of how it keeps track of stuff. And that's how I paid for Claude Code to do the work for me. And whenever it ran out of gas, it would just say, hey,
Mm.
you fill up the gas tank. So I'd add another $5 or $10. And
I know in Hollywood there's something going on now where people are buying tokens to watch content, and they're getting the companies do this because they get away like around taxes. Rather than paying a subscription, if you pay in tokens, there's like a tax loophole. I don't
okay,
know if that's what's happening here, but it could be. I'd
maybe.
be curious to know. So, how have you found this system enhance your treatment? Like, have you just been learning like a ton
Oh,
from doing this and just
okay.
implementing it?
I've been doing this for a few months now. And I will tell you, and this is just spot checking here. When I use the Dexcom 7, and when I look at my last 90 days time in range, average glucose, to the last 30, I've dropped 10 points average glucose, and I've dropped about 0.2% an A1C, estimated A1C, just using this app
Yeah,
to
that was the
give
only
me
change.
more specific information about what it is I'm consuming. I also anecdotally can tell you that I recall taking more insulin based on its recommendation, carefully, right? Based on its recommendation. And that has resulted in me being closer more in range. And my range is like I try to keep it between 90 and 110. That's my, I mean, our general diabetic range is 70 to 180, right? That's the
Standards of care.
standards of care, right? But you can set a range in loop that you like the algorithm to keep you in. So I try to keep it very tight now because I can, 90 to about 120, and I'm in that range way more often now in the last 30 days than I was in the last couple of years before, which is good. If you know that you go down to the local restaurant and they're serving you 3 servings of French fries and that's what that looks like, it's got to have a psychological effect on reducing your consumption maybe. And
Yeah, and back to what I said way earlier is this is a big feature that would be very helpful for people who haven't had access to great diabetes education. I personally have had some incredible education from my diabetes educator where I have become a very good carb counter, carb estimator, right? So for the most part, I do really well. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. Are there plates that are put in front of me at a restaurant where I'm like, oh shit, I have no idea what I'm going to do here? Rarely, but it happens. And that's when I would take this out, right? I don't know if I would use this feature every single day with every single meal, unless actually I just want to do it for a week and learn a lot.
It's
It
pretty
wouldn't be
fun.
something I use continually,
Yeah.
exactly, just because I have gotten very good at this. But there are meals where I would be like, oh, I have the app for this and it's right in my loop. But there are so many people out there that have never had access to that education where something like this needs to be in every system and accessible to everyone, because it is the most at least right now with where algorithms are and the technology is, and we don't have dual hormone pumps that can keep us up and down. This is needed, and this is going to be needed for some time and a much longer time in places that lack all the accessibility, right? So
Hmm.
that's why that's one big reason why this is so huge to me. Today's episode is sponsored by T1D Exchange. You can directly make an impact on diabetes healthcare, treatments, and technology by participating in the T1D Exchange registry. It starts with a simple survey about your life with T1D, and it only takes about 15 minutes. After that, you'll have a personal portal with ongoing T1D study and survey opportunities. Plus, some of these studies even offer compensation. Signing up with the link in the show notes helps support my channel, and it allows me to continue putting out free content. You can sign up at t1dexchange.org/diabetic or click that link in today's show notes. There are a few settings that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
One of them was advanced dosing recommendations that had a
Yeah.
toggle in the settings of this. What is that?
When you create a feature for Loop, you're encouraged to post it to a chat board called Zulip Chat, where you share the feature amongst the developer community and power users of Loop. And it gives them an option to install it. You know, you can create a pull request and they can go and install it and play around and give you feedback. So one of the suggestions I got was, boy, it would be a game changer if this thing could render its opinion about FPUs. And I'm like,
What are FPUs?
yeah, what are FPUs? So I had to go learn, what are you talking about? Apparently it's fiber protein units. I don't know. It's some other way to measure how much you're consuming, and I think it tries to account for the fact that when you eat fat and fiber and protein together with carbs, right? It all kind of converts to carbs over time, just at much different rates. So
Yeah.
it's all energy, is the point. It's all energy that affects your blood sugar. And some components in there affect it a lot less, but take a lot longer. Others affect a lot more, like carbohydrates directly. So we're used to just covering for carbs because that's the simplest thing to do. But when you start going, okay, well, I'm going to eat 2 servings of chicken and there's a lot of fat in chicken, or I'm going to eat, something with a lot of protein like chicken, or I'm going to eat something with a lot like avocado, the good fat. All of those things have an impact as to how much you should dose in order to really geek out on, dosing for diabetes. So FPUs are a additional way to view what you're eating with more depth with respect to what is the whole meal in terms of how it would be absorbed, how it would be used by my body, that sort of thing, right? So I don't know much beyond that, except I
Okay.
did learn an awful lot about it in trying to incorporate it. And so one of the suggestions was, if this thing could render an opinion about FPUs, that would be game changing. That was literally his comment. So I'm like, all right. So I work with Claude Code. Talk to me about FPUs. How, read this. I gave it a couple of studies about FPUs and how to analyze them and blah, blah, blah out on the web. And then asked it, how can we incorporate this? And it said, why don't we have an advanced section? And I'm like, cool, let's do it. So it did it.
When that's turned on, does it give you another bracket of information when you're reading through all of those notes?
Yeah. Advanced analysis can range from 2 or 3 additional pieces of input to like up to 9 things.
Yeah.
So FPUs
And you
is
know what?
of those
I
things.
think the people who need the advanced information are the people who don't know it as well, right? Like I know I've learned a lot of that. I may not
Yeah.
need the advanced stuff on all the time, but that's great information. Yeah, if you have a plate that is only protein, that protein will turn into carbs because you're not eating carbs. So your body needs the carbs, and that's an important aspect of treatment.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's just, it's really just all about the more information. Just I wanted to just get more information out there for people who I know are struggling with it, or that I know would benefit from it even if they don't think they're struggling with it. So,
Yeah. Now, there's two different models that
yes.
you can use, right, when you're getting this information, a standard quality and a fast mode.
Yes.
Why are there two modes, and what are the
Well,
differences?
that was one of the performance enhancements that Claude Code suggested we deploy. It gave me a list of them. Out of the 4 or 5 things, I picked that one to be to develop against. And the reason for that is there are faster, more nimble models of AI out there than the standard ones. I mean, who knew? I didn't even know this. So it lets you choose. If you want standard deeper analysis, it will use we'll use GPT-4. And if you want fast mode, it will use GPT-4 mini.
Is there a difference in token use between those?
I think so, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I just know that it's more responsive. It's faster,
Okay.
but with less accuracy. So it created all of that, and then it even created the explanation between the two, so that a user could choose. Okay, well, I want a deeper analysis, so I'm going to use the standard model because this meal has 10 different things on it, and I really want to know everything about it that I can find out.
Yeah. I think the craziest part about this whole story is you've built something so full of so many features and abilities, and Claude has been there right by your side where like you don't fully understand or know everything about
This is
it.
the beauty of context engineering. I mean, if you get the context right, it will do the needful. It's just amazing that it had come up with these enhancements when simply asked the question, what else can we do to bring more information to the user? That's all I asked.
Yeah.
And it's
And
just
you
like,
don't have to ever stop. You could say, well, okay, now what?
I have
Now
to
what?
stop. I have to stop because
You
my
have to
wife is like, you spend way too much time on that, man. So
Yeah, right. This is the final phase. You're on a
this is
podcast
it.
and everyone can find out.
That's why I had to go build that other app, because
Right.
I'm like, I can build something new.
During the creation of this, or even still, have you noticed any hallucinations with some of the AI?
I haven't really noticed hallucinations because I was really bent on making sure it was accurate. So I feel like through my Q&A with, my developer, my full stack Claude Code, I think we pretty much nailed it so that it doesn't produce hallucinations. I've never seen anything extremely creative coming from it because the prompt is designed to just get what I'm asking for back. It's very filtered.
Why did it feel so important for you to make this for others too?
Well, two things. I mean, Loop has really helped me a lot be a better diabetic, and like measurably. My doctor is so impressed. He's like, I don't want to know what you're doing because it's not FDA certified, but I want to know. And when I told him I was going to make an AI powered way to look up food, he's like, "Oh yeah, I want to see that next time you're in the office." And so he's right along there with me. But it has really made me become better diabetic. My last A1C was 5.3. I expect my next A1C will probably be 5.1. And you can't really get too much better than that without starting to dip into it kind of being too low. I mean, it's pretty much I'm normal now. And I want every diabetic to feel normal. So that's what inspired me to create this. And then the second aspect of that is just this whole lack of proper nutritional information that either we ignore, we don't remember, we're too lazy to learn, or we never learned it in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's not our fault. Like, it's never our fault we got diabetes. We didn't cause this, but we have to take on so much more load, and we have to learn so much more to be good at it. It's really hard to be good at it. And it's like we all got day jobs and a life. Like, it's
Yeah.
really hard. So The second part about that was just how can I make it simple for people to learn, easy for them to learn in their day to day, and kind of make it fun.
Yeah. Visually, it's very fun to look at. And this feature really does empower users to take more control of their treatment and the food they're eating and not be as afraid for some foods potentially. And I hope that your system acts as a basis for FDA cleared systems, and hopefully some of them are watching right now to be like, wow,
That would be
we
awesome.
can do this. Like let's do this, for within our systems, because everyone should have access to this, not just the people who
Yep.
decide to build Loop, which is definitely a smaller population. And I do see this feature as something that should be in that main branch of Loop. The way you've designed it is it's a toggle. It doesn't have to be on, but you can toggle it on. Are you working, or have you been in contact with the powers that be to get this into the main branch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my I wanted to give it back. I didn't. There's no commercial interest in it at all. Loop has been so good for me. I want everybody who uses Loop to take advantage of it, and I want everybody who uh, has their own apps to just do this. Just figure out a way to do this. Like the Omnipod 5 has its own algorithm, and if the developers at Insulet are not thinking about this, maybe this will get them thinking about this. I'm sure they are. They gotta be, right? But I don't know. We make bad assumptions all the time, so who knows? And so, yeah, I reached out to the name I saw the most in Loop's developer community, and have asked her to help me figure out how to package this. So there's two ways we could do it. We can make it part of the main branch where it becomes a part of core Loop. That's lengthy and would require a lot of extensive testing by a lot more people. Or we can add it as a customization.
Yeah.
That gets it accessible by the second biggest population. Or we can leave it as a developer only testable pull request sort of thing. So it's at that lowest level right now, and the gal I'm working with has helped me figure out how to get it to that point where it's easy to apply it to most instantiations of Loop. And she's also helping me now figure out, okay, how do we when you download Loop today with the build script, you can add 15 different customizations. So I want our thing here, food search, to be a part of those 15. I want to be 16.
Yeah.
And we can do that, then we can reach that second level, and it can go out to the moms and the dads who have diabetic kids or that have diabetes themselves and they're seriously thinking about diabetes and how to manage it, and they have people to care for that have it, but they would do it under the supervision of a custom script delivered version of it. So I'm hoping to spread the word and get it accessible as fast as possible. I don't know the timeline, but I think in maybe the next few weeks or so we might have something that's more easily usable by people who are familiar with Loop.
Yeah. I hope to make a video soon about all of the customizations in Loop. I myself
Oh,
haven't
cool.
really explored them that in detail, but there are a few that I want to put within my app, and I also want to put this in my app and start testing it out. So we'll talk about that after recording. Are there any features on this food search that aren't there that you're like that you want to eventually get to, or do you feel like this is at a place where you're like, okay, I've done this and let's give it to everyone?
No, it's ready. I mean, it now needs to take on a life of its own and get some feedback from people far more creative than me, and also who can share with me their experience that may be different. I came to this because I'm lazy and I don't want to use another app like Gluco to go search a barcode and search for food, and I just wanted it in the app because that's where I'm operating all the time. I mean, you ask any Loop user, and I mean they're watching it all the freaking time. So that's it, and now it's time to get input from others. Incidentally, if you want to add it, I did get this to work. You run the build script and download a new core loop download. And then just before you add customizations, you pause. Then you download and copy my pull request content over that installation. Just copy paste. Then you start the customization script again and you add your customizations. It works. And you get like, the line that's like now you get the advanced dosing algorithms, you get some of this stuff. The only thing you can't do is there's 3 customizations that are not compatible yet. Like the live activity one and a couple of others. But
Okay.
I managed to get it to work that way simply. But this guy is helping me get it to be more advanced than that so that we could combine them all into one.
So exciting. I can't wait to check this out myself. What do you think your experience shows us about the future of innovation outside of the space or within, whatever you kind of want to go with? I'm just curious.
Like I said, we talked about light bulb moments. When I realized I also have a full stack developer in any coding language, just about, at the ready, available 24/7, available when I'm on vacation or working after work on my side project, and I don't have to interview anyone. I don't have to assess their skills because I don't know the skills. I don't have to pay a company. All I have to do is have a great idea. If it's software based, this thing can manifest it to the point where it becomes a reality. I think of it like when you remember when like the first 3D printing came around and people were like, oh, I got this idea for this thing shaped like this. It's in my head. It's in my brain, but I want to see it manifested in 3 dimensions, And let's go to the CAD machine and let's, do the thing and let's make it printed out. And you're like, oh, my God, in 30 hours I have a thing, and I don't have to hire a company in China to build it and prototype it and test it. But I got a thing. That's what it felt like to me. But it happened like that.
In 30 minutes.
It's not like you had to send it off to the mainframe to work on it for the weekend before you could see its results. It literally built a wireframe that worked in a simulated iPhone on my computer in like 10, 20, 30 minutes. And that means, I think it means people with great ideas now have a really wide avenue through which they can manifest that idea if they just learn some basics about using AI as a tool. I can't wait to see what people build, develop, create.
I can't wait either. This is really just the beginning, especially for even the diabetes space and Loop and all of the DIY space. And hopefully, the pharma companies can start to add features like this. It's an exciting time to have diabetes. It has been, I guess, for me. Like the technology's been awesome since I've been diagnosed, and hearing projects like yours, give me more hope for people out there to have access to better information, quality information to better treat themselves. Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is an incredible story. I'm so glad we could share it with anyone. And yeah, I hope people go take a look at it. I'll put a couple links in the show notes where people can, learn more about DIY Loop. They can learn more about your features and your system. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Thank you very much for reaching out to me and giving me an opportunity to share this more widely than I thought I was going to be able to, because I'm so grateful that you gave me that chance, because that's all I really wanted, is for others to pick this up and run with it, and I want them to see a better life as a result of it. So I can't wait to see what people think. Thank you.
Now I want to hear from you. What do you think of Taylor's new features? Let me know down in the comments. Are you working on a project? Let me know about that too. I'd love to have you on the show. I think that this speaks a lot to what the future is going to look like in so many areas of life, but specifically in the DIY space. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of people working on projects, and then people who may have not been able to develop ever but had an idea making it happen. So the future is bright. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I am excited for it. I'm here for it. So if you want the cutting edge in diabetes tech, you need to make sure you're subscribed, whether it's on YouTube or on podcast platforms. And remember, on YouTube, we are showing video of what you're hearing. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Justin, and I'll talk to you later.